Welcome back. Chapter 45. I'm nervous because this is the end. In this one video, I'm going to be reading all the way through to chapter 48. And then there's a 2 months after chapter 48. So let me clutch my pearls now because I'm so nervous. I don't know what to expect because this book have me like locked in. I can't even think about what is about to happen. Okay, I delayed enough. Y'all ready? Pip stepped closer into the yellow glow of the lamplight, trying to think over the screeching in her head. She screwed her eyes and studied the face before her. Now that she was closer, she could see the obvious differences. The slightly different slope to her plump lips, the downturn to her eyes where they should flick up, the swell of her cheekbones lower than they should be. Changes that time couldn't make to a face. Pip had looked at the photographs so many times these past months, she knew every line and groove of Andy Bell's face. This wasn't her. Pip felt detached from the world, floating away, empty of all senses. "You're not Andy," she said quietly, just as the police officer climbed up the ladder behind her and placed a hand on her shoulder. The wind was screaming in the trees, and 42 Gravesend Road was lit up with flashes of red and blue, rippling in and out of the night. 4 cop cars filled the drive now, and Pip had just seen Detective Richard Hawkins in the same black coat he worn in the press conference over 5 years ago step into the house. Pip stopped listening to the policewoman taking her statement. She heard her words only as a rock slide of falling syllables, so she concentrated on breathing instead. That's when they brought Mr. Ward out. 2 officers on either side, his hands cuffed behind his back. He was weeping, the red and blue lights mirroring on his wet face. The wounded sounds he made woke some instinctively fear inside her. This was a man who knew his life was finished. Had he really believed the girl in his loft was Andy? Had he clung to that belief this whole time? How? They ducked his head, put him in the car, and took him away. Pip watched until they were swallowed by the tunnels of trees. As she finished giving her contact number to the officer, she heard a car door slamming behind her. "Pip!" The wind carried Ravi's voice to her. She felt a pull in her chest, and then she was running. She rushed to the top of the driveway, and Ravi caught her, his arms tight as they anchored themselves together against the darkness. "Are you okay?" he said, holding her back to look at her. "Yes," she said. "What are you doing here?" "Me?" He tapped his chest. "When you didn't turn up at my house, I looked for you on Find My Friends. Why did you come here alone?" He eyed the police car and officers behind her. "I had to," she said. I had to ask him why. I didn't know how much longer you'd have to wait for the truth if I didn't." Her mouth opened once, twice, 3 times before the words found their way, and then she told Ravi everything. She told him how his brother had died as they stood under shivering trees, lights undulating all around them. When the tears broke down Ravi's face, Pip said she was sorry because that was all there was to say. "Don't be sorry," he said with a half cry. "Nothing could have brought him back. But we have, in a way. Sal was murdered. Sal was innocent. And now everyone will know." They turned to watch as Detective Richard Hawkins walked the girl out of the house, a lilac-colored blanket wrapped around her shoulders. "It's really not her, is it?" Ravi said. "She looks a lot like her," said Pip. The girl's eyes were wide and spinning as she looked around at everything. relearning what outside was. Hawkins led her to a car and climbed in beside her as two uniformed officers got in the front. Pip didn't know how Mr. Ward had possibly come to believe this girl he found on the side of the road was Andy. Was it delusion? Did he need to believe Andy hadn't died as some kind of atonement for what he did to Sal? Or was it fear that blinded him? That's what Ravi thought, that Mr. Ward was terrified Andy Bell was alive and would come back home, and then he'd go down for Sal's murder. And in that heightened state of fear, all it took was a blonde girl who looked similar enough to convince him he found Andy. And he locked her up so he could lock up that terrible fear of being caught right along with her. Pip nodded, watching the police car drive away. I think, she said quietly, I think she was just a girl with the wrong hair and the wrong face when the wrong man drove past. And that other itching question that Pip couldn't yet get voice to, what had happened to the real Andy Bell after she left the Ward's house that night? The officer who'd taken her statement approached them with a warm smile. Do you need someone to take you home? She asked Pip. No, it's okay, she said. I have my car. Pip made Ravi get in with her. There was no way she'd let him drive home on his own. He was shaking too hard. And secretly, she didn't want to be alone. She turned the key in the ignition, catching sight of her face in the rearview mirror before the lights dimmed. She looked gaunt and gray, her eyes glowing inside sunken shadows. She was tired. So utterly tired. I can finally tell my parents, Ravi said when they were back on the main road out of New Canaan. I don't know how to even start. Her headlights lit up the welcome to Fairview sign as they crossed into town. Pip drove down Main Street, headed toward Ravi's house, and drew to a stop at the Central roundabout. There was a car waiting on the other side of the circle, its headlights bright and piercing white. Why aren't they moving? It's their right of way, Pip said, staring at the boxy car ahead, lit up with yellow lights from the street lamp above. Don't know, Ravi said. You just go. She did, pulling forward slowly around the curve. The other car had still not moved. As they drew closer and out of the glare of the oncoming headlights, Pip's foot eased up on the pedal. She looked curiously out of her window. Oh, shit, Ravi said. It was the Bells family. All three of them. Jason was in the driver's seat, his face red and striped with tear trails. It looked like he was shouting, smacking his hands against the steering wheel, his mouth moving with angry words. Dawn Bell was beside him, shrinking away. She was crying too, her body heaving as she tried to breathe, her mouth bared in confused agony. Their cars drew level, and Pip saw Becca in the back seat on their side. Her face was pale, pushed up against the window. Her lips were parted and her brows furrowed, eyes lost in some other place as she stared blankly ahead. As they passed, Becca's eyes snapped into life and landed on Pip. There was a flicker of recognition and something heavy and urgent, something like dread. They drove away down the street and Ravi let out his breath. You think they've been told? He said. Looks like they just have, said Pip. The girl kept saying her name was Andy Bell. Maybe they have to go and formally identify that she isn't. She looked into her rearview mirror and watched as the Bell's car finally rolled away across the roundabout towards the snatched promise of a daughter returned. That's the end of chapter 45. Chapter 46. Pip sat at the end of her parents' bed well into the night. Her and her story, the telling of it was almost as hard as living of it. But the worst part would be telling Kara. By 10 p.m., Pip knew she couldn't avoid it anymore. She hovered her thumb over the call button, but she couldn't do it. She couldn't say the words and listen as her best friend's world fell apart. Pip wished she was strong enough, but this would break her too. She opened her messages instead and started to type. I should be calling to tell you this, but I don't think I could get through it. Not with your voice at the other end. This is the coward's way out, and I'm so sorry. Your dad was the one who killed Sal, Kara. He was keeping a girl he thought was Andy Bell in your old house in New Canaan, and he was just arrested. Naomi will be safe, though, I promise. I know why he did it when you're ready to hear it. I'm so sorry. I wish I could save you from this. I love you. She read it over, still in her parents' bed, and pressed send, tears falling against the phone as she cradled it in her cupped hands. Her mom made breakfast when Pip finally woke up at 10:30. They didn't talk about it again. There was nothing more to say, not yet. But still the question of Andy Bell played on Pip's mind. Andy somehow had one last mystery left in her. Pip tried to call Kara 17 times, but it rang out each time. Naomi's phone too. Early afternoon, her mom stopped by the Ward's house after picking up Josh. She came back saying that no one was home and their car was gone. They've probably gone to their Aunt Lila's, Pip said, pressing redial again. No one quite knew what to do with the afternoon. They sat in the living room, silently watching reruns of quizzes shows, exchanging furtive looks over Josh's head, the air bloated with a sad what now tension. When someone knocked at the front door, Pip jumped up to escape the strangeness that smothered the room. Still in her tie-dye pajamas, she pulled open the door. It was Ravi, standing in front of his parents, the spaces between them perfect, like they prearranged the pose. Hello, Sarge, Ravi said. This is my mom, Nisha. He gestured like a game show host, and his mom smiled at Pip, her black hair in two loose plaits. And my dad, Mohan. His dad nodded, and his chin brushed the top of the giant bouquet of flowers he held. A box of chocolates was tucked under the other arm. Parents, Ravi said, this is the Pip. Pip polite hello got muddled in with theirs. So, Ravi said, they called us into the police station earlier. They sat us down and told us everything we already knew. And they said they'd be holding a press conference once they charged Mr. Ward and will release a statement about Sal's innocence. Pip heard her mom and heavy-footed dad walking up the hallway to stand behind her. Ravi redid the introductions and continued. So, he said, we wanted to come over to thank you, Pip. This wouldn't have happened without you. I don't quite know what to say, Nisha said, her Ravi Sal eyes beaming. Because of what the two of you did, you and Ravi, we have our boy back. You've given Sal back to us, and there are no words for how much that means. These are for you, Mohan said, leaning forward and handing over the flowers and chocolates to Pip. I'm sorry, we weren't quite sure what you're supposed to get for someone who helped vindicate your dead son. Google had very few suggestions, said Ravi. Thank you, Pip said. Do you want to come in? Yes, do come in, her mom said. I'll make some coffee. As Ravi stepped into the house, he took Pip's arm and pulled her back into a lingering hug, crushing the flowers between them, laughing into her hair. When he let her go, Nisha stepped up and folded her into a hug as well. Her sweet perfume smelled to Pip like homes and mothers and summer evenings. And then, not sure why or how it happened, they were all embracing, all six of them swapping and hugging again, laughing with tears in their eyes. And just like that, with crushing flowers and a rotation of hugs, the sings took away the suffocation and confused sadness that had taken over the house. They'd open the door and let out the ghost for at least a little while, because there was one happy ending in all of this. Sal was innocent. His family set free from the weight they carried all these years, and that was worth hanging on to. In the living room, they sat around a full spread of sandwiches that Pip's mom had improvised, batting Josh's hands away until Ravi's parents had taken their pick. "So," her dad said, "are you going to the carnival opening tonight?" "Actually," Nisha said, looking from her husband to her son, "I think we should go this year. It'll be the first time since, but things are different now. This is the start of things being different." "Yeah," Ravi said, "I'd like to go. You can never really see the fireworks from our house." "Awesome," Pip's dad said, clapping his hands. "We could meet you there. Let's say 7:30 by the drink stand." Pip wasn't sure she was ready to be around all those people and the questions in their eyes. "I'll go brew another pot," she said, picking up empty mugs and carrying them into the kitchen. She stared at her warped reflection in the chrome surface of the coffee maker until a distorted Ravi appeared in it behind her. "You're being quiet," he said. "What's going on in that big brain of yours?" "Actually, I don't even need to ask. I already know what you're going to say. It's Andy." "I can't pretend it's over," she said. "It's not finished." "Pip, listen to me. You've done what you set out to do. We know Sal was innocent and what happened to him. But we don't know what happened to Andy. After she left the Ward's house that night, she still disappeared." "It's not your job anymore, Pip," he said. "The police have reopened Andy's case. Let them do the rest. You've done enough." "I know," she said, and it wasn't a lie. She was tired. She needed to be free of all of this, needed the weight on her shoulders to just be her own. And the last Andy Bell mystery wasn't hers to chase anymore. Ravi was right. Their part was over. That's the end of chapter 46. Chapter 47. She had meant to throw it out. That's what she told herself. The murder board needed to be thrown out because it was finished. It was time to dismantle the Andy Bell scaffolding and see what remained of Pip's beneath. She made a good start unpinning some of the pages and putting them in piles by a garbage bag. And then, without realizing what she was doing or how it happened, she found herself looking through it all again, rereading log entries, tracing her fingers across the red string, staring into the suspect's photos. She'd been so sure she was done, but with half a second and a fleeting glance, Andy had found a way to suck her in again. Pip was supposed to be getting dressed for the carnival, but instead she was on her knees, hutching over the murder board. Some of it really did go in the trash bag. All the clues that had pointed to Elliot Ward. Everything about the Ivy House Inn, the phone number in the planner, the hit and run, Sal's stolen alibi, Andy's nude photo that Max found at the back of a classroom, and the printed notes and texts from unknown. But the board also needed things added because she knew more about Andy's whereabouts on the night she disappeared. Now, she grabbed a printout of a map of Fairview and started scribbling. Andy went to the Ward's house and left not long after with a potential serious head injury. Pip circled the Ward's house on Hillside. Mr. Ward had said it was around 10ish, but he must have been slightly off with that guess. His and Becca Bell's estimate of time didn't match. Yet Becca's was backed up by security footage. Andy had driven past the camera at 10:40 p.m. That's when she must have headed to the Ward's house. Pip drew a dotted line and scribbled in the time. Mr. Ward had to be mistaken, she realized. Otherwise, it meant that Andy had returned home with an injured head before leaving again. And if that had been the case, Becca would have told the police those details. So Becca was no longer the last person to see Andy alive. Elliot Ward was. But then Pip chewed the end of a pen, thinking. Mr. Ward said that Andy hadn't driven to his house. He thought she walked. And looking at the map, Pip saw why that made sense. The Bells and the Ward's houses were very close. On foot, you just had to cut through the church and over the pedestrian bridge. It was probably a quicker walk than a drive. Pip scratched her head. But that didn't fit. Andy's car was picked up by the surveillance camera, so she must have driven. Maybe she parked somewhere near Mr. Ward's, but not near enough for him to notice. So how did Andy go from that point into non-existence? From Hillside to her blood in the trunk of her car, ditched near Howie's house. Pip tapped her pen against the map, eyes flitting from Howie to Max to Nat to Daniel to Jason. There had been 2 different killers in Fairview. One who thought he killed Andy and then murdered Sal to cover it up, and another who'd actually killed Andy Bell. And which of these faces staring up at her could it be? 2 killers? And yet only one of them had tried to get Pip to stop, which meant that, wait. Pip held her face as she closed her eyes to think, thoughts firing off and then coming back, altered. And Mr. Ward's face, just as Pip said, she'd never forgive him for killing Barney. It was crumpled, his brows tense. But maybe it hadn't been remorse on his face at all. Maybe it was confusion. And the words he'd spoken, Pip finished his sentence in her head. Pip, I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't kill Barney. Pip swore under her breath. She upturned the trash bag, scattered papers all around her, hunting through the mess. She found them, the notes from the camping trip, and her locker in one hand, the printed text from unknown in the other. They were from 2 different people. It was so obvious now looking at them. The difference weren't only in form, it was in their tone. In the printed notes, Mr. Ward had called her Pippa, and the threats were subtle, implied. But unknown called her stupid bitch, and the threats weren't only implied, they made her smash her laptop and then they killed her dog. She let out her 2 full breaths. 2 different people. Elliot Ward wasn't unknown, and he hadn't killed Barney. No, that had been Andy's real killer. Pip, come on. They'll be lighting the fireworks soon, her dad called upstairs. She bounded over to her door and opened it a crack. You guys go on ahead. I'll meet you there. What? No, get down here, Pips. I just want to try to call Kyra a few more times, Dad. I really need to talk to her. I won't be long, please. I'll find you there. Okay, Pickle, he called. I'll leave in 20 minutes, I promise, she said. Okay, call me if you can't find us. The front door crashed shut, and Pip sat back beside the murder board, the messages from unknown shaking in her hands. She scanned through her log entries, trying to work out when she had received the text. The first had come just after she found Howie Bowers, after she and Ravi had spoken to him and learned about Andy's Dylan. And then Barney had been taken in the week of fall break. A lot had happened just before that. She bumped into Stanley Forbes twice. She'd gone to see Becca, and she'd spoken to Daniel at the police meeting. Fuck! She scrunched up the pieces of paper and threw them across the room. There were just too many suspects still. And now that Elliot's secret were out and Sal was to be exonerated, would the killer be looking for revenge? Would they make good on their threats? Should Pip really be in the house on her own? She scrolled down at all their photos. She drew a big X through Jason Bell's face with a blue marker. It couldn't be him. She'd seen the look on his face in the car after the detective must have called them. Both he and Dawn crying, angry, confused. And something else in their eyes, the smallest glitter of hope alongside their tears. Maybe even though they'd been told the girl wasn't Andy, some small part of them had hoped it would still be their daughter. Mr. Bell couldn't have faked that reaction. The truth was in his face. The truth was in the face. Pip picked up a photo of the Bell family, and she stared into those eyes. It didn't come all at once, but in little blips, lighting up across her memory. Then the pieces dropped, falling into place. She grabbed all the relevant pages from the murder board. Log entry 3, the interview with Stanley Forbes. Entry 10, the first interview with Emma Hutton. Entry 20, the interview with Jess Walker about the Bells. 21, about Max buying drugs from Andy. 23, about Howie and what he supplied her with. Entry 28 and 29, about drinks spiking at Calamities. The paper on which Ravi had written, "Who could have taken the burner phone?" in large capital letters. And the time Mr. Ward said Andy left his house. She looked them over and she knew who it was. The killer had a face and a name. The last person to see Andy alive. But there was just one last thing to confirm. Pip pulled out her phone, scrolled down her contacts, and dialed the number. "Hello? Max," she said. "I'm going to ask you a question." "I'm not interested. See, you were wrong about me. I've heard what happened, that it was Mr. Ward." "Good," Pip said. "Then you know that right now I have a lot of credibility with the police. I told Mr. Ward to cover up the hit and run, but if you don't answer my question, I'll call the police and tell them everything." "You wouldn't." "I would. Naomi's life is already destroyed. Don't think that will stop me anymore." She bluffed. "What do you want?" he spat. Pip paused. She put the phone on speaker and opened her recording app. She pressed record and sniffed loudly to hide the beep. "Max, at a calamity party in March 2014, she said, did you drug and rape Becca Bell?" "What? No, I fucking didn't." "Max," Pip roared down the phone, "do not lie to me, and I swear to God I will ruin you. Did you put Rifanol in Becca's drink and have sex with her?" He coughed. "Yes, but, it wasn't rape. She didn't say no." "Because you drugged her, you vile rapist, gargler," Pip shouted. "You have no idea what you've done." She hung up, stopped the recording, and pressed the lock button. Her sharp eyes stared back at her from the darkened screen. The last person to see Andy alive, it had to be Becca. It had always been Becca. Pip's reflection blinked back at her. The decision was made. That's the end of chapter 47. Last chapter, chapter 48. The car jerked as Pip pulled roughly onto the curb. She stepped out into the darkened street and up to the front door. She knocked. The wind chimes beside it were swaying in the evening breeze, chiming high and insistent. The front door opened and Becca's face appeared in the crack. She looked at Pip and pulled it fully open. "Oh, hi, Pippa," she said. "Hi, Becca. I came to see if you were okay. You were okay after last night. I saw you in the car and..." "Yeah," she nodded. The detective told us it was you that found out about Mr. Ward and what he'd done. Yeah, I'm sorry. Do you want to come in? Becca asked, stepping back to clear the threshold. Thanks. Pip walked past her and in the hallway she and Ravi had broken into weeks ago. Becca smiled and gestured her through into the Robin Eggs blue kitchen. Would you like tea? Oh, no thanks. Sure? I was just making some for myself. Okay then, black please. Thanks. Pip took a seat at the kitchen table, her back straight, knees rigid, and watching as Becca grabbed 2 flowery mugs from the cupboard, dropped in the tea bags, and poured from the kettle. Excuse me, Becca said. I just need to get a tissue. As she left the room, Pip pocket buzzed and chimed. It was a message from Ravi. Yo, Sarge, where are you? She flicked her phone to silent and zipped it back into her coat. Becca re-entered the room, tucking a tissue into her sleeve. She brought over the teas and put Pip's down in front of her. Thank you, Pip said, taking a sip. She was glad for it now, something to do with her shaking hands. The black cat came in, strutting over with his tail up, rubbing his head into Pip's ankle until Becca shooed him away. How are your parents doing? Pip asked. Not great, Becca said. After we confirmed she wasn't Andy, my mom booked herself into rehab for emotional trauma, and my dad wants to sue everyone. Do they know who the girl is yet? Pip said into the rim of her mug. Yeah, they called my dad this morning. She was on the missing persons register. Isla Jordan, 23, from New Haven. They said she has a learning disability and the mental age of a 12-year-old. She came from an abusive home and had a history of running away and possession of drugs. Becca fiddled with her short hair. They said she's very confused. She lived like that for so long, being Andy because it's what pleased Mr. Ward, that she actually believes she's a girl called Andy Bell from Fairview. Pip took a large gulp. Her mouth felt dry, and there was an awful tremor in her throat, echoing back her double heartbeat. She raised the mug and finished off the tea. She didn't look like her. She did look like her, Pip finally said. I thought she was Andy for a few seconds, and I saw in your parents' faces the hope that maybe it would be Andy after all, that me and the police could be wrong. But you already knew, didn't you? Becca put her own mug down and stared at her. Your face wasn't like theirs, Becca. You looked confused. You looked scared. You knew for sure it couldn't be your sister because you killed her, didn't you? Becca didn't move. The cat jumped on the table beside her, and still she didn't move. In March 2014, Pip said, you went to a calamity party with your friend Jess Walker, and while you were there, something happened to you. You don't remember, but you woke up and you knew something felt wrong. You asked Jess to go and get a morning after pill with you, and when she asked who you slept with, you didn't tell her. It wasn't, as Jess presumed, because you were embarrassed. It's because you didn't know. You didn't know what happened or with who. You had an antegrade amnesia because someone slipped roofies into your drink and then assaulted you. Becca just sat there, inhumanely still, like a small fleshed out mannequin too scared to move. And then she started to cry, the muscles twitching in her chin. Pip's gut congealed as she looked into Becca's eyes and saw the truth there. Because the truth was no victory here. It was just sad and confusing. I can't imagine how horrible and lonely it was for you, Pip said, feeling unsteady, not being able to remember, but just knowing that something bad had happened. You must have felt like no one could help you. You did nothing wrong and you had nothing to be ashamed of. But I don't think you felt that way at first, and you ended up in the hospital. And then what happened? Did you decide to find out what had happened to you? Who was responsible? Becca's nod was almost imperceptible. I think you realized someone had drugged you. So is that where you started looking? Started asking around about who brought drugs to Calamities and who from? And the questions led you back to your own sister. Becca, what happened on Friday, April the 18th? What happened when Andy walked back from Mr. Ward's house? All I found out was someone brought weed and ecstasy off of her once, Becca said, looking down and catching her tears in her hands. So when she went out and left me alone, I looked in her room. I found the place where she hid her other phone and the drugs. I looked through the phone. All the contacts were saved with just one letter names, but I read through some messages and I found the person who brought Riffenol from her. She used his name in one of the texts. Max Hastings, said Pip. And I thought, she cried, and I thought that once I knew, we would be able to fix everything and put it right. And I thought that when Andy got home, I'd tell her and she let me cry on her and tell me she was so sorry that we, me and her, were going to set this right and make him pay. All I wanted was my big sister and the freedom of finally telling someone. Pip wiped her eyes, feeling shaky and drained. And then Andy came home, Becca said. With a head injury? No, I didn't know that at the time, she said. I didn't see anything. She was just here in the kitchen, and I couldn't wait any longer. I had to tell her. And Becca's voice broke. When I did, she just looked at me and said she didn't care. I tried to explain, and she wouldn't listen. She just said I wasn't allowed to tell anyone or I'd get her in trouble. She tried to leave the room and I blocked her. Then she said I should be grateful that someone had actually wanted me because I was just the fat, ugly version of her. And she tried to push me out of the way. I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe she could be so cruel. I pushed her back and tried to explain again, and we were both shouting and shoving, and then it was so fast. Andy fell back onto the floor. I didn't think I pushed her that hard. Her eyes were closed, and then she was being sick. It was all over her face and in her hair, and, Becca sobbed. Then her mouth was full, and she was coughing and choking on it, and I just froze. I don't know why. I was just so angry at her. When I look back now, I don't know whether or not I made any decision. I don't remember thinking anything at all. I just didn't move. I must have known she was dying, and I stood there and did nothing. Becca shifted her gaze then to a place on the kitchen towel by the door where it must have happened. And then she went still, and I realized what I've done. I panicked and tried to clear her mouth, but she was already dead. I wanted to take it back so badly. I wanted to every day since, but it was too late. Only then did I see the blood in her hair and thought I must have hurt her. For 5 years, I've thought that. I didn't know until 2 days ago that Andy had injured her head before with Mr. Ward. That must be why she lost consciousness, why she was sick. Doesn't matter though. I was still the one who let her choke to death. I watched her die and did nothing. And because I thought it was me that hurt her head and there were scratches on her arms from me, signs of a struggle, I knew everyone, even my parents, would think I'd meant to kill her. Because Andy was always so much better than me. My parents loved her more. You put her body in the trunk of her car, Pip said, leaning forward to hold her head because it was too heavy. The car was in the garage and I dragged her inside. I don't know how I found the strength to do it. It was all a blur now. I cleaned up everything. I watched enough documentaries. I knew which type of bleach you had to use. Then you left the house just before 10:40 p.m., said Pip. It was you the security camera picked up driving Andy's car up Main Street, and you took her. I think you took her to that old farmhouse on Sycamore Road, the one you were writing an article about, because you didn't want the neighbors to buy it and restore it, and you buried her there? She's not buried, Becca sniffed. She's in the septic tank. Pip nodded, her fuzzy head grappling with Andy's final fate. Then you dumped her car and you walked home. Why did you leave it on Monroe? When I looked through her second phone, I saw that was where her dealer lived. I thought if I left the car there, the police would make the connection and he'd be the main suspect. What must you have thought when suddenly Sal was the guilty one and it was all over? Becca shrugged. I don't know. I thought maybe it was some kind of sign that I've been forgiven, though I've never forgiven myself. And then, Pip said, 5 years later, I start investigating. You got my number from Stanley's phone from when I interviewed him. He told me some kid was doing a project thinking Sal was innocent. I panicked. I thought that if you proved his innocent, I'd need to find another suspect. I kept Andy's burner phone, and I knew she was having a secret relationship. There were texts to a contact named E about meeting up at this place, the Ivy House Inn. So I went there to see if I could find out who this man was. I didn't get anywhere. The old woman who owned it was very confused. 10 weeks later, I saw you hanging around the station parking lot, and I knew that's where Andy's dealer worked. I watched you, and as you followed him, I followed you. I saw you go to his house with Sal's brother. I just wanted to make you stop. That's when you first texted me, Pip said. But I didn't stop. And when I came to talk to you at your office, you must have thought I was so close to figuring out it was you, talking about the burner phone and Max Hastings. So you killed my dog and made me destroy all my research. I'm sorry, she looked down. I didn't mean for your dog to die. I let him go, I really did. But it was dark. He must have gotten confused and fallen in the river. Pip's breath caught. But accident or not, it wouldn't bring Barney back. I loved him so much, Pip said, feeling dizzy, unjoining from herself. But I want to forgive you. That's why I came here, Becca. If I've worked all this out, the police won't be far behind me. Not now that they've reopened the case. And Mr. Ward's stories start to poke holes in yours. She spoke fast, slurring, her tongue tripping over the words. It's not right what you did, Becca, letting her die. But I know you know that. It's not fair what happened to you. You didn't ask for any of this. But the law lacks compassion. I came to warn you. You need to leave, get out of the country, and find a life for yourself somewhere, because they will be coming for you soon. Pip looked at her. Becca must have been talking, but suddenly, all the sound in the world disappeared, just the buzz of a beetle wings trapped inside her head. The table was rippling between them, and Pip's eyelids felt unnaturally heavy, dragging down and down, and she stuttered. The world dim. The only bright thing was the empty mug in front of her, wavering, its colors dripping up into the air. You put something in my drink. There were a few of Max's pills left in Andy's hiding place. I kept them. Becca's voice came to Pip, loud and garnished, a streaking echo switching from ear to ear. Pip pushed up from her chair, but her left leg was too weak. It gave out under her, and she crashed into the kitchen island. Something smashed, and the pieces were flying around like jagged clouds and up as the world spun around her. The room lurched, and Pip stumbled over to the sink, leaning into it and ramming her finger down her throat. She vomited, and it was dark brown and stinging, and she vomited again. A voice came to her from somewhere near and somewhere far. I'll work something out. I have to. There's no evidence. There's just you and what you know. I'm sorry. I don't want to do this. Why couldn't you just leave it alone? Pip staggered back and wiped her mouth. The room reeled again, and Becca was in front of her. No, Pip tried to scream, but her voice got lost somewhere inside. She hurled back and sidestepped around the island. Her fingers bit into one of the stools to keep her on her feet. She grabbed it and launched it behind her. There was a head-splitting clatter as it took out Becca's legs. Pip ran into the wall in the hallway, ears ringing and shoulders throbbing. She leaned into it so it wouldn't mutate away from her and scaled her way to the front door. It wouldn't open, but then she blinked and it vanished, and she was outside somehow. It was dark and spinning, and there was something in the sky, bright and colorful mushrooms and doomed clouds and sprinkles. The fireworks with a rippling the earth sound from the park. Pip picked up her feet and ran toward the bright light into the woods. The trees were walking in a wooden two-step, and Pip's feet went numb, missing. Another sparkling sky roar, and it made her blind. Her hands out in front to be her eyes. Another crack, and Becca was in her face. She pushed, and Pip fell onto her back in the leaves and mud. And Becca was standing over her, hands splayed and reaching down, and a rush of energy came back to Pip. She kicked out hard, and now Becca was on the ground too, lost in the leaves. I was trying to help you, Pip stammered. She turned and crawled, and her arms wanted to be legs, and her legs arms. She scrabbled up to her missing feet and ran away from Becca. More bombs were bursting, and it was the end of the world behind her. She grasped at the trees to help push her on as they danced and twirled in the falling sky. She grabbed the branch, and it felt like skin. It lunged out and gripped her with two hands. They fell onto the ground and they rolled. Pip's head smashed against a tangled set of roots and a snaking trail of wet down her face. The iron bit of blood in her mouth. The world went dark again as the redness pulled by her eyes. And then Becca was sitting on her, and there was something cold around Pip's neck. She reached up to feel. It was fingers, but her own wouldn't work. She couldn't pry them off. Please, the words squeezed out of her, and the air wouldn't come back. Her arms were stuck in the leaves, and they wouldn't listen to her. They wouldn't move. She looked up into Becca's eyes. She knows where to put you where they'll never find you, in a dark place with the bones of Andy Bell. Her arms and legs were gone, and she was following. I wish someone like you had been there for me, Becca cried. All I had was Andy. She was my only escape from my dad. She was my only hope after Max, and she didn't care. Maybe she never had. Now I'm stuck in this thing, and there's no way out except this. I don't want to do this. I'm sorry. Pip couldn't remember now what it felt like to breathe. Her eyes were splitting, and there were fire in the cracks. Fairview was being swallowed by darkness, but those rainbow sparks in the night were nice to look at. One last nice thing to send you on before it all goes dark. And as it did, she felt the cold fingers loosen and come away. The first breath rippled and snagged as she sucked it down. The blackness pulled back, and sounds grew out of the earth. I can't do it, Becca said, moving her hands back to hug herself. I can't. Then a crash of rustling footsteps and a shadow leaped over them, and Becca was dragged off. More sounds, shouting and screaming. And, you're okay, Pickle. Pip turned her head, and her dad was here. pinning Becca down on the ground while she struggled and cried. And there was another person behind Pip, sitting her up, but she was a river and couldn't be held. Breathe, Sarge, Ravi said, stroking her hair. We're here now. Ravi, what's wrong with her? Hypnol, Pip whispered, looking up at him. Rohypnol, NT. Ravi, call the ambulance now, call the police. The sounds went away again. It was just the colors and Ravi's voice vibrating in his chest and threw her back to the outer edge of all senses. She let Andy die, Pip said, and she thought she said, but we have to let her go. It's not fair, not fair. Fairview blinked. I might not remember. I might get amnesia. She's in a septic tank, farmhouse, Sycamore. That's where. It's okay, Pip, Ravi said, holding her so she didn't fall off the world. It's over. It's all over now. I've got you. How did you find me? Your tracking device is still on, Ravi said, showing her a fuzzy jumping screen with an orange blip on the Find My Friend map. As soon as I saw you here, I knew. Fairview blinked. It's okay. I've got you, Pip. You're going to be okay. Blink. They were talking again, Ravi and her dad, but not in words she could hear, in the scratching of ants. She couldn't see them anymore. Pip's eyes were the sky, and fireworks were rupturing inside. Flowers sprayed of Armageddon. And then she was a person again, on the cold, damp ground, Ravi's breath in her ear. And through the trees were flashing red and blue lights spewing black uniforms. Pip watched them both, the flashes and the fireworks. No sound, just her rattlesnake breath and the sparks and the lights. Red and blue, red and blue, blue and red. And that's the end of chapter 48. 2 months later. There are a lot of people out there, Sarge. Really? Yeah, like 200. She could hear them all, the clattering of chairs as people took their seats in the assembly hall. She was waiting in the wings behind, her presentation notes clutched in her hands. The sweat from her fingers smudged the ink. Everyone else in her grade had done their capstone project presentations earlier in the week. 2 small classrooms of people. But the school thought it would be a good idea to turn Pip's presentation into a bit of an event. As the principal had put it, Pip had given no choice in the matter. The school had advertised it online and in the Fairview Mall. They'd invited members of the press to attend. Pip had seen a CNN van pull up earlier and the equipment and cameras unpacked. Are you nervous? Ravi said. Are you asking obvious questions? When the Andy Bell story broke, it had been in the national newspaper and on TV stations for weeks. It was in the height of all the craziness that Pip had had her interview for Columbia. The 2 interviewees had recognized her from the news, swiping aside their notes of formal questions, asking her instead about the case. Her acceptance letter was one of the very first to come in. Fairview's secrets and mysteries had followed Pip so closely in those weeks, she had to wear them like a new skin, except the one that was buried deep down, the one she kept forever to save Kara, her best friend who never once left Pip's side in the hospital. Can I come over later? Ravi asked her. Sure, Kara and Naomi are coming for dinner too. They heard a sharp patter of heels and Mrs. Morgan appeared, fitting through the curtains. I think we're just about ready when you are, Pipper. Okay, I'll be out in a minute. Well, Ravi said when they were alone again, I better go and take my seat. He smiled, put his hands on the back of her neck, fingers in her hair, and leaned in to press his forehead against hers. He told her before that he did it to take away half her sadness, half her headache, half her nerves before her Columbia interview, because half less of a bad thing meant there was room for half good. He kissed her, and she glowed with that feeling, the one with wings. You bring the rain down on them, Pip. I will. Oh, he said, turning one last time before the door. And don't tell them the only reason you started this project was because you fancied me. You know, think of a more knowable reason. Get out of here. Don't feel bad. You couldn't help yourself. I'm ravishing. He grinned. Get it? Ravishing. Sing. Sign of a great joke. Having to explain it. She said, now go. She waited another minute, muttering the first lines of her speech under her breath, and then she walked out on stage. People weren't quite sure what to do. About half the audience started clapping politely. The news cameras panned to them, and the other half sat deadly still, a sea of eyes stalking her as she moved. From the front row, her dad stood up and whistled with his fingers, shouting, "Get 'em, Pips!" Her mom swiftly pulled him back down and exchanged a look with Nisha Singh sitting beside her. Pip strolled over to the principal lecture and flattened her speech down on top. "Hi," she said, and the microphone screeched, cutting through the silent room. Cameras flicked. "My name is Pip, and for my senior capstone project, I decided to solve a murder. I did not know that this project would put myself, my friends, and my family in danger and would end up changing many lives. But what I do know," she paused, "is that this town and the national media still don't really understand what happened here at all. I am not the prodigy student who found the truth about Andy Bell, keeping Sal Singh and his brother Ravi relegated to small side notes. This project began with Sal to find the truth for him." Pip's eyes found Stanley Forbes in the third row, scribbling away in an open notebook. She still wondered about him and the other names on the persons of interest list, the other lives and secrets that had crisscrossed this case. Fairview still had its mysteries, unturned stones, and unanswered questions. This town had too many dark concerns. Pip had learned to accept she couldn't shine a light into each and every one. Stanley was sitting just behind her friends, Kara's face absent among them. As brave as she had been through everything, she decided today would have been too hard for her. "I couldn't have fathomed," Pip continued, "that when this project was over, it would end with 4 people in handcuffs and one being set free after 5 years in a makeshift prison cell. Elliot Ward had pleaded guilty to the first-degree murder of Sal Singh and to kidnapping in the first degree of Isla Jordan. His sentence hearing is next week. Becca Bell will face trial later this year for the charge of criminally negligent homicide, illegal disposal of a dead body, and tampering with evidence. Max Hastings has been charged with 4 counts of sexual assault and 2 counts of rape, and will also be tried later this year. And Howard Bowers had pleaded guilty to the charge of possession with intent to sell. She shuffled her notes and cleared her throat. So why did the events of Friday, April 18, 2014 happen? The way I see it, there are a handful of people who carry the blame for what happened that night and the days following, morally if not all criminally. These are Elliot Ward, Howard Bowers, Max Hastings, Becca Bell, Jason Bell, and do not forget Andy herself. You have cast her as a young, beautiful victim and willfully overlooked the other layers of her character because they don't comfortably fit your narrative. But this is the truth. Andy Bell was a bully who used emotional blackmail to get what she wanted. She sold drugs without care or regard for how they might be used. We will never know if she knew she was facilitating drug-assisted sexual assault, but when confronted with this truth by her own sister, she could not find it in herself to show compassion. And yet, when we look closer, behind this true Andy, we find a girl who was vulnerable and self-conscious. Andy grew up being taught by her father that the only value she had was in the way she looked and how strongly she was desired. Home for her was a place where she was criticized and belittled. Andy never got the chance to become the young woman she might have been away from that house, to decide for herself what made her valuable and what future she wanted. And though this story does have its monsters, I found that it is not one that can be so easily divided into the good and the bad. In the end, this was a story about people and their different shades of desperation, crashing up against each other. But there was one person who was good until the very end, and his name was Sal Singh. Pip looked up then, her eyes going straight to Ravi, sitting between his parents. "The thing is," she said, "I didn't do this project alone, as the guidelines required. I couldn't have done it on my own. So I guess you're going to have to disqualify me." A few people gasped in the audience. Miss Morgan loudly among them, a few titters of laughter. "I couldn't have solved this case without Ravi Singh. In fact, I wouldn't have survived it. So if anyone should speak about how kind Sal Singh was, now that you're all finally listening, it's his brother." Ravi stared at her from his seat, his eyes wide in that telling off way that she loved. But she knew he needed this, and he knew it too. She beckoned with a tilt of her head, and Ravi got to his feet. Her dad stood up too, whistling his fingers again and smacking his big hands loudly together. Some of the students in the audience joined in, clapping as Ravi jogged up the steps to the stage and walked over to the lecture. Pip moved back from the microphone as Ravi joined her. He winked at her, and Pip felt a flash of pride as she watched him step up to the lecture, scratching the back of his head. He told her just yesterday that he was going to retake his school exam so he could go on to study law. Hi, Ravi said, and the microphone screeched for him too. "I wasn't expecting this, but it's not every day a girl throws away a guaranteed A for you." There was a quiet ripple of laughter. "But I guess I don't need preparation to talk about Sal. I've been preparing for that nearly 6 years now. My brother wasn't just a good person. He was one of the best. He was kind, exceptionally kind, always helping people. And nothing was ever too much trouble. He was selfless. I remember this one time when we were kids, I spilled chocolate milk all over the carpet, and Sal took the fall for me so I wouldn't get in trouble. Sorry, Mom. Guess you had to find out sometime." More chuckles from the audience. Sal was cheeky, and he had the most ridiculous laugh. You couldn't help but join in. And oh yeah, he used to spend hours drawing these comics for me to read in bed because I wasn't a great sleeper. I still have them all. And damn was Sal clever. I know he would have done incredible things with his life if it hadn't been taken away from him. The world will never be as bright without him in it. Ravi's voice cracked. And I wish I'd been able to tell him all this when he was alive. Tell him he was the best big brother anyone could ever wish for. But at least I can say it now on this stage and know that this time everyone will believe me. He looked back at Pip, his eyes shining, reaching out to her. She drew forward to stand with him, leaning into the microphone to say her final lines. But there was one final player in this story, Fairview, and it's us. Collectively, we turned a beautiful life into the myth of a monster. We turned a family home into a ghost house. And from now on, we must do better. Pip reached down behind the lecture for Ravi's hand, sliding her fingers between his. Their entwined hands became a new living thing, her fingertips perfect against the dip in his knuckles, like they've grown just the way to fit together. Any questions? Oh my God, that's the end of the book. First of all, Ravi, I owe you an apology. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I blamed you the whole time. But I didn't want to interject any type of feelings or verbally any type of feelings as I was finishing up these chapters because I wanted it to go and you get everything that's happening. So it was Becca. Did anybody have Becca on their suspect list? I don't recall if I ever had Becca on my suspect list because I think I was hung up on Ravi. But if y'all had Becca on y'all list, kudos to y'all because I don't even think, did Pip ever have Becca on her list? No. But we knew that Becca was, roofied at a party. And we just didn't know that Andy, we did know that she was a piece of work, but she was really a piece of work. But as Pippa said in the end, how her life, which is not an excuse, but it happens. Like the life that you live sometimes affect your thoughts and the way you behave in life. You just have to make a conscious decision to not be that way, speaking from experience. You just have to choose to want to be better in life. And at first, in the beginning, I was thinking Ravi was jealous of his brother. And lo and behold, it was it was Becca and Andy situation. And I'm so glad. Oh, wait, let me back up. First of all, when she approached Becca, after knowing that Becca was the killer, I don't understand why she would trust that at all. But I knew she was going to be drugged as soon as Becca said, let me go get a tissue. And when Becca said, do you want something to drink? I knew it. But I'm glad that Becca didn't kill her in the woods. And it's finally, like they said, over. But I'm pretty much, this book, let me tell you, this book was amazing. Sometimes don't read the reviews. Make your own decision, because when I read the reviews, they said that this book wasn't, all that. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But I read the review a little bit, like maybe chapter 30 is when I read the reviews, because I was trying to see if people was figuring it out, but they didn't say it. So this book at the end got me all choked up and emotional, but I like it. All right, so I am about to rate this book. Okay, number one, the writing style, 5 out of 5. Perfect. I love how it was interactive, and I like the conversation. I like all of that. So, and it flowed so well. Okay, number 2, characters. Enough characters. It didn't have a lot. I was like at a point like, okay, now you can't add any more characters because we got these down packed. And if you add some more, you're just going to be adding to the confusion. But this author stopped it at a right point. And then she was like, okay, y'all ready? And that's what she did. So she was playing with my emotions, but good emotion. Number 3, the storyline. Characters. Did I say 5 out of 5? Okay, number 3, the storyline. The storyline, I'm giving that rating now, 5 out of 5. The storyline had me going up and down, but it kept me engaged, Like I couldn't pinpoint anything. And the storyline, it covered a lot of stuff. It covered sibling rivalry. It covered people being drugged at parties. It covered, Grape. It covered family dysfunction. It covered secrets, drugs, um, what's to call it? I can't think of it, where an older man is liking a younger girl, So the storyline has so much to go on, and it didn't stay focused on too much. It just threw it out there, and it fought and it flowed perfectly. Okay, 4 is suspense, and I'm giving that a 5 too, 5 out of 5, and it's a 5 because the suspense, I couldn't answer any of the questions that I had. I couldn't say yay or nay to any of the questions until the very end, and it was all answered. And last is plot twist. I don't know if Becca is considered a plot twist or not, but I think Mr. Ward confessing and having a person in the attic that wasn't Andy, that could be considered a plot twist, but it wasn't like a big old plot twist. So the plot twist, I'm giving a 3. And then I don't know, did I say I don't know if Becca is considered a plot twist? Because did y'all have her up there? I don't know. So overall, my rating for this book is a 5 out of 5. And I say that Holly Jackson, even though this was a teen, for teens, it's under teens, it was great for adults or for anybody that want to read it. So I will be adding Holly Jackson as a new author that I'm going to read. I'm going to read the next book in her series. Oh, and before I forget, this book is on Netflix, and I will be watching it with my aunt. Now, I don't know, I don't know when we're going to start it, but we can finally watch it because I want to compare the book to the series. I think it's like 6 or 8 episodes. And so if y'all watch it, y'all let me know if y'all going to watch it. Okay, so real quick, the second book is called Good Girl, Bad Blood. So I'm going to see if my library have it, and I'm going to read that one to see if Holly is going to stay in as my new author. Okay, real quick. I keep saying real quick, but I want to read the acknowledgments. I thought it was really nice. It says, this book would have remained an abandoned Word document or unexplored idea in my head if it weren't for a whole list of amazing humans. Firstly, to my super agent, Sam Copeland, it is incredibly annoying that you're always right. Thank you for being so cool and calm. You're the best person anyone could have on their team, and I will be forever grateful that you took a chance on me. To the editorial team in the UK, Ali, Sorora, Sarah, and especially Lindsay, thank you for seeing the heart of this story and for helping me to find it. And to Tracy and the Rights team for their incredible job bringing this book to other parts of the world. To everyone at Delacour Press and Random House Children's Book, thank you so much for all your hard work on this book. The biggest thanks must, of course, go to my incredible editor, Audrey Ingerson. Thank you so much for believing in me and this book. It means the world, and sometimes I still can't believe it. Thank you for being brave enough to take on a super British book and somehow help me turn it into something that feels like it truly belongs over there. I'm so grateful for your tireless enthusiasm. You've been the best guide I could ever ask for. An enormous thanks to Beverly for the amazing opportunity, to Casey Moses, Christine Blackburn, and Allison Impey. Thank you so much for the beautiful cover design. I couldn't have dreamed up one more perfect, and I'm so happy that your incredible work is the very first thing people will see of the book. Thank you to Trish, Heather, Stephanie for the genius interior design. Pip's homework has never looked so good. Thank you to Tamara and Tracy for all your amazing hard work, and to Colleen and Allison for your incredible attention to detail. And a massive thank you to marketing and publicity stars Janine Perez, Elizabeth Ward, and Emma Benshoff. To my debut group for all their support, with special mentions to Savannah, Yasmin, Katra, Lucy, Sarah, Joseph, and Aisha. This whole publishing thing is far less scary when you go through it with friends. To my flower Huns, what a useless WhatsApp group name, and now it's in a published book, so we can't get rid of it. Thank you for being my friends for more than a decade, for understanding when I disappear into my writer's hole. Thanks to Elspeth, Lucy, and Alice for being early readers. To Peter and Guy, thank you for your unwavering support, for reading the earliest version of this book, and for letting me live somewhere so nice while I write the next one. And to Katie for championing this book from the start, and for giving me the first spark of Pip. To my big sister, Amy, thanks for letting me sneak into your room to watch Lost when I was too young. My love for mysteries has grown from there. To my little sister, Olivia, thank you for reading every single thing I've ever written, from that red notebook of scribbled stories to Elizabeth Crow. You were my very first reader, and I'm so grateful. To Daniel and George, oh, hey, look, you've made it into the acknowledgments just for being cute. You better not read this book until you are an appropriate age. To Mom and Dad, thank you for giving me a childhood filled with stories, for raising me alongside books and films and games. I wouldn't be here without all those years of Tomb Raiders and Harry Potter. But thank you mostly for always saying I could when others said I couldn't. We did it. And to Ben, you are my constant through every tear, tantrum, failure, worry, and victory. Without you, I couldn't have done it at all. Finally, thank you for picking up this book and reading to the end. You'll never know how much it means to me. And you are welcome, Holly Jackson. This is the end of A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. And don't forget to watch the series on Netflix. See you. Wait, no, I forgot. There will not be a book read for December, and I shall see you in 2026 in January. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you, and feel free to put how you feel about this book in the comment section, and I shall see you in my next book. Bye for now.